Welcome to the Chiropractic Mindset Mastery Podcast, hosted by Dr. Danny Scahill. Dr. Danny is a doctor of chiropractic, a best-selling author, coach, speaker, and trainer. On the Chiropractic Mindset Mastery Podcast, he interviews other experts so you can glean further insights to help you on your journey to chiropractic mastery.
Welcome to this episode of the Chiropractic Mindset Mastery Podcast. I've got another fantastic guest for you today, Dr. Matthew Loop. A little bit about Dr. Matthew. Dr. Matthew Loop is the best-selling author of Social Media Made Me Rich, an investor, speaker, and highly sought-after social media profit strategist. He helps chiropractors and business owners multiply their monthly income by harnessing powerful platforms like TikTok, Facebook, YouTube, Google, and Instagram. Since the Myspace days in 2005, he's trained over 43,000 business owners in 25 countries. Millions have viewed his free growth tutorials online. Matthew's public speaking events are attended by thousands of high achievers and forward thinkers annually. Without further ado, welcome to the C-Man podcast, Dr. Matthew. How are you doing, sir?
Appreciate you, Danny. Thanks for having me.
You're most welcome. So tell us about your journey going all the way back to those MySpace days in the early noughties, mate. How did it all start for you?
Yeah. So I'm a chiropractor. I wanted to be a chiropractor ever since I was in 11th grade. Chiro came into my health occupations class, and I had just broken my ankle playing football, American football. And so I was considering some type of medical, like orthopedic surgery initially. And then this doc came in. He talked about this drugless, surgeryless profession that utilized the body's own innate recuperative healing capabilities. And I thought it was so fascinating. So that really stirred my mind on becoming a chiropractor initially. And then I had my prerequisites set for the pre-med. And then, went to school, graduated at Life University in Atlanta. And like so many docs, we just want to help people when we get out. But there's really not formal business training in school. So you're learning the ropes as you get out. You're learning about marketing, communication, and outreach and things of that nature. And my practice was moderately busy, wasn't shattering any records by any means, but I just, again, was naive in terms of the business. So here in America, for instance, you might submit a claim to an insurance company and they might not reimburse you for 2 to 3 months sometimes. And that's just a very interesting cycle that you have to deal with until you start to get a large amount of accounts receivable, things coming in, and if you accept insurance. So I was at a point one time where I had this, $100,000+ student loan debt, and my credit cards were maxed. My ex-girlfriend's father had to cut me a check for $2,000 to float me along. I felt humiliated when that happened, but it taught me, lesson that I didn't want to be in that position ever again. And so I figured I had to figure out this business, this marketing mindset, and understand I've got this great message of chiropractic. Why am I not being more successful initially? And so I began to really discover and read books by Michael Gerber. E-Myth talks about the manager, technician, entrepreneur. I read Robert Cialdini, this influence psychology of persuasion, and so many others that really just zoned me into just why people make the buying decisions that they make. And then right along that time is when a social network called MySpace started really creeping up, 2005, 2006, gaining massive momentum. I just happened to be there hanging out with friends, and I realized that, oh my gosh, these people on this network, they are within 5 miles of my office. I can just meet people randomly, and they're going to see my profile and know what I do, that I'm a chiropractor in the area. So that's initially what I started to do. I just started to meet a lot of people, and 1 to 3% of the people that I met were just like, "Hey, I saw you're a chiropractor in this local area. Oh, I've got this going on. Can you seem to help me?" And we would talk, and they would come into the office, which I thought it was blowing my mind at the time. And then I had friends and colleagues that got wind of what I was doing, and they started asking me like, "Hey, how are you using this network, this kids network," they thought it was, to bring in people to your office? And then I began showing them, and it got to a point where I was showing so many doctors, chiros, of how to use this technology. And then YouTube dropped and launched in 2006, and I was right at the forefront of that. I began using that technology to rank on Google, to bring in patients. And then Facebook opened up publicly. This used to be a college network not long after. So I was in the right place at the right time. And then the volume of inquiries from my friends and colleagues, I said, man, I got to figure out how to take what was up here, like what I'm doing, and maybe put it into a DVDs or CDs or something in manuals at that time, because it was cutting into my practice time. And so I figured out how to do that. It wasn't as easy it was today. You know, you had to piece together six different systems. So I was like, I was, still working in the office, and then I started to see my secondary source of income grow. Was selling online courses to teaching other docs. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is wild. So I basically set my life on a trajectory and accidentally veered into consulting because I thought if I could help thousands of docs reach millions of patients, that's just an amazing thing that I thought was pretty cool. And throughout that time, that's when I started getting called to do speaking gigs around the profession initially. And then my friends knew other colleagues that were in like real estate or attorneys and pretty much every other profession you can think of. And so that's, I guess, kind of how my journey began initially as a chiropractor, but accidentally veered into the consulting space. And I've worked a lot still with doctors and professionals in that space, but also, get called to speak in other places as well. So it's been a very beautiful time.
Awesome. That sounds like an amazing journey to date, mate. I reckon I would presume you've had loads of mentors and inspirations over the years. Who were they in the past, and who are they now?
And I've had so many mentors. Some have been close to me. Some have never known they were mentors, right? You read a book and you glean somebody's life experience, and then ultimately which is also fascinating that you could do that, like somebody's life knowledge in one book. More people should absolutely read books and figure that out. But everything like I was mentioning before, to where you had the marketing individuals like your or marketing and business like Robert Cialdini to Michael Gerber to I had to learn social media marketing on my own initially because there were no manuals in 2005 2006. It was so early and no one really knew what it would become. I wish I could say that, oh yeah, I totally knew that it would reshape communication as we know it, but I didn't know. And then as I started to get into more like business, Robert Kiyosaki of Rich Dad Poor Dad, learning about financial IQ and education that way, and then even all the way up to you kind of now, I still do a lot of training and host seminars for doctors and professionals that want to grow with social media and create more passive income online. But we're also into the business acquisition space because, when you acquire or buy a business the right way, sometimes even for little to no money out of your own pocket, it's one of the best and easiest ways to generate cash flow now on top of what you're already doing. And one of my prime mentors with that was Roland Frazier. Got in his mastermind about 3 years ago, and he's responsible for over $4 billion in exits alone. So I like to go to the people that are doing things that I want to do. And I saw, we were talking a little bit earlier, and I was thinking about this is if I kind of had it to do over again, not just necessarily in chiropractic, but some of these other areas of my life, the easiest and fastest way to get the knowledge that you need is to closely associate with somebody that's already been there. Number one, just like I was talking about learning the business acquisition skill set, right? I didn't have time to necessarily take a course to study this and that for 6 months. I wanted the information now. And I said, the fastest way is to get in an inner circle of the people where I can talk with him on a regular basis and get what would take me years in a matter of a couple weeks or sometimes less. So, I should have taken some of that bar money in college and invested in going into different chiropractors' offices and saying, hey, listen, I'll pay you to come into your office for a day to learn systems, processes, protocols, leadership, marketing, advertising. That would have been a very smart play on my part if I had to do it over because, as we all know, time is money. I just don't think that a lot of times we understand and realize how much that can cost you if you don't get information now, as opposed to if you have to wait for a year. I talk to doctors all the time. It's like, imagine if you would have implemented this social media growth method 6 months ago, 2 years ago. And they're just like, oh, yeah, that was a good opportune time. Not that there's a bad time to start getting yourself out there, but there is that window of opportunity that, once it closes, it's just gone.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. So, in terms of mindset, you've been an entrepreneur for a long, long time. And so we're all human beings, aren't we? Some days we have amazing days, some days we're having a shit day. If you're having a crap day, what would be your 1 to 3 go-to strategies to get your head out of the shed and back in the game?
That's a great question, actually. Yeah, so that's life. Life hits everyone. No one is immune to this. And so when I'm having a bad day, or the life of an entrepreneur is like one minute you're king and you're just everything's coming in, you've got a rush of income and all these things. Next day you feel like you're losing everything. And that it doesn't matter what level you're at, that happens to us all. That's the game we play, and I wouldn't have it any other way. But what I try to do in terms of a mindset is I try to put things in perspective. It's like this is one day. I'll take a step back, and I just am of the belief that whatever's coming into my life, I've somehow brought it into my life. So I always take a step back and I reevaluate the situation. Okay, there's way too many fires today in this business or that business. What did I do wrong, or how can we prevent this in the future? And I try to be very analytical about it. Of course, I'll take my 5 to 10 minutes of deep belly breathing, try to flood my body with oxygen, maybe go play a little tennis or something to really just like take my mind off of that initially, get a lot of oxygen to my body so I can really refocus. I just find that the exercise, it really helps me along with the meditation and along with analyzing specifically, okay, something is wrong here. I'm involved some way because these are my people, my processes, protocols. Like, how can I fix this and make sure that this, never happens again? Or, put fail safe systems in place. So that's usually what I like to do. And I'm just one of those guys. I typically blame myself for everything because it's on me in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, like a 100% responsibility. Yeah, nice. So you mentioned meditation there a little bit. What style of meditation do you do, and what do you get out of it when you do it?
Well, so what I try to do is, I mean, I'll just do deep belly breaths, usually 30 at a time. Try to flood my body with oxygen and exhale as far as I can, and 30 at a time, and exhale as big as I can. Sometimes I'll do it inside, outside. I don't know if that I have a specific, I'm sure this would be a technique that, uh, others have used, or I'm not even sure what you would call it. I try to keep my eyes closed. I try to center my mind, try not to think about anything else and just focus on my actual breath itself. And so by the time I do, 30, 30, and 30, I think that's usually roughly around 5 minutes or so. But that's been my protocol.
Nice. I like it.
Mhm.
Awesome. So, in terms of, I was just thinking about it when I was just before I read out your bio. Are you still in practice in any way, shape, or form, or are you 100% consulting? And if you're not, which I'm assuming you're probably not in practice,
Mhm.
but I could be wrong. At what stage did you exit practice and focus solely on consulting, if that is the case?
Yeah, so I've been consulting Kairos since about, like I said, 2006 in the online course and then the private coaching and whatnot. I didn't sell the practice actually until 2020 because I had independent contractors that were in the practice. They were seeing their own patients. I didn't need to be there, which was nice. So it was passive income. But I just, at that point in my life, because I still consult with a lot of chiropractors and still have my finger in the profession, kind of know what's working, what's not, and whatnot. So I am in the trenches that way. And I do speak at a lot of chiro events and such. And of course, I run clinics out of my own house when when my family's here for Christmas and the holidays. But um, but yeah, so I sold in 2020 because it really didn't need to be. Yeah, I just didn't really need to be there anymore. And then plus, we were thinking about homeschooling our kids, and if we're going to travel all over the world, and we're very blessed and grateful to be able to do that. But we just wanted to do it more with the kids. And I thought, well, I don't want to be necessarily tied down to that office. I had a manager in there. She was good, but for a local brick and mortar versus an online or several online businesses, it wasn't as comfortable for me to necessarily say, okay, well, I'm never going to be there and have a manager do it because in business, like a classic rule in business and in life, you need to have your money, you need to have your finger on the money and the marketing always. So I do have people that I trust, but I still am involved in the processes and I wouldn't want to be totally hands off because that's sometimes can set you up for a situation that is not good.
Absolutely. Good stuff. And so I know you do lots of different business ventures. You mentioned business acquisition, consulting, chiropractors. If I remember rightly, don't you do some stuff on Amazon as well? What is it you do on Amazon? Is it selling products or something else?
Yeah, so Amazon is a huge opportunity. You can sell private label products that you source either from the US, the UK, China, India, wherever, and you can put your label on them and you can sell them on Amazon. So one of the things that I've taught doctors and entrepreneurs for a very long time, and I did this because I started to see the benefits of doing it in my own life, is I started teaching them how to create passive income online. And I just knew from very early on, especially with the books that I was reading, the people that I was associating with, that having one or two streams of income was very risky because I mean, in the last 5 years should have taught. I mean, if you're a Cairo watching this, for example, depending on where you were in the world, your government literally told you you could not practice. They literally shut you down. Now, that was a wake-up call for many, even here in the States. Not every state shut down, but there was a point in time where it just brought to reality, oh my gosh, this could happen in our life now. This is the reality. So having one source of primary income is very, very dangerous because then who knows what could happen, right? So I've been a big believer for a very long time. So Amazon is one of those great ways, yes, that you can build a separate stream of income, either congruent with your current business or practice, or around a hobby and something else. It's a family business. You can involve your kids if you wanted to. And that's exciting for a lot of people to where you could start something and potentially have income coming in. One of my clients, I'm thinking off the top of my head, Dr. Brad, he's out of Canada. It's actually in Zermatt this week in Switzerland. But like he was, selling pizza dough rollers in, I can't remember where exactly he sourced them. He was selling these refrigerated coolers, like, in areas and markets that he knew. I just helped him launch his business and, $12,000 a month later, right? So anything's possible with this. It's just getting an understanding. And my personal opinion is I don't think Amazon is going anywhere anytime soon. So that could be a very viable option. But also everyone's DNA is kind of different, right? Some people like to gravitate more toward the Amazon side of things. Some maybe think, hey, I might want to sell an online course online to package my expertise. Others might say, yeah, let me write a book and launch it and then make money that way. Or let me buy a business that's already cash flowing and I can either bolt that onto my existing practice or business, or it might be something totally separate that could provide passive income. So I like to see where the mindset is of the doc or the business owner that I'm working with, and then say, oh, well, likely this could be a better option based on, what your goals and aspirations are.
Nice, love it. So, in terms of when you used to run your own chiropractic practice, what were some of the biggest mistakes you made in running that business, and what were some of the biggest learnings you got from solving those issues?
One of the biggest mistakes early on was not understanding, at least here in the United States, the actual payments. So for instance, if you're an all cash practice, that's pretty straightforward. You could kind of know what's coming in very easily, know what bills are going out. That's a start, having your finger on all the specifics and also knowing how much money it takes you to acquire one new patient or one new client. Like if I can spend 100 pounds or $100, and I know that a new patient's going to come into my practice, and that could potentially be worth 1,000 pounds based on a treatment plan, based on whatever they need. Well, that makes financial sense. I'll run those numbers all day long. So I wish I would have been more attuned to the practice acquisition costs in different media forms, whether it was newspaper that we were doing a long time ago, or social media, or radio advertising, TV, things of that nature, because what you can measure, you can improve. And if you're just haphazardly putting stuff out there and you can't track that, that's a problem because you have no idea what's really hitting the mark. So that's a big thing. And then the second was understanding that if you have an accounts receivable, that's going to have a cycle. You need to know what that's going to be. Is it going to be a few weeks? Is it going to be a few months? Because that can really put a strain on your cash flow. And if you're just starting out, you might need to get a working capital loan from a bank or whatever that might be. So those were two things. And the third thing would be communication. Enhancing that a lot earlier on because you probably know this as well as anyone, but they could have a herniated disc, a serious problem in their spine. They know they need care. They know they have to get rehabilitation, chiropractic. They know they need it. But in many instances, for some odd reason, if you just say, well, this is what you need based on, your condition, the x-rays, and similar patients that have had this condition in the past. You need to be on a treatment plan of 3 times a week for the next 2 or 3 months to rehab what you have. Like there's an educational process that has to take place because there's a lot of people they just don't understand it. They think that it's one magic adjustment that's the quick fix for everything. And that's not the case because it doesn't just take usually one instance to herniate a disc. Yeah, maybe if you're in a severe car accident, yes, but a lot of times it's the repetitive wear and tear over years and years and years, and you have to reverse that with your chiropractic, your physical therapy, your rehabilitation, like all these things combined together. So I wish I would have understood a little bit earlier how to communicate that more effectively to patients because I lost a lot of people that I didn't communicate as well because I thought they just understood how severe their issue was, if that makes sense.
It does, absolutely. And so that leads perfectly onto another question. In terms of, mastering the art of communication, how important is it, do you feel, for yourself in the past and also your clients to be able to tell their story, whatever chiropractic means to them, to their prospective clients and patients? How important is that?
You can't overstate the importance because and this is, when I work with clients one-on-one, a lot of times one of the first things that I will do and say, what is your chiropractic story? Why did you get in? And many times there's just this miraculous event that happened or something that was life-changing, very, not necessarily all pain-based problems, but some people are just they're having more energy, they're able to conceive a child. There's like really crazy stories sometimes. And I always say, whatever the story is, just tell the story because what's going to happen is there will be people that read that story that are going to resonate. They're going to be like you, be in those similar situations. And if you can describe somebody's problem or issue better than they can, automatically you have trust and credibility with that individual and they're going to be more likely to come in your office and some of the stories that we post we'll take a chiropractic story and post it a certain way and then we'll put some dollars behind it with Facebook or Instagram ads. Those drive in new patients and practice members like crazy in some instances. So from a standpoint of building a practice it can be great, but also from a standpoint of you being memorable in the marketplace, even if it didn't produce people in your office on the front end, if everyone knows your story, who you are, what you do at a much, much deeper level, when they need you, they're going to call you for sure. And so many other docs, they don't do that. They do things that are not memorable, even if they're advertising for a very long period of time. They do simple ads that everyone else does, so it doesn't necessarily make them stand out in the market versus I mean, I still remember the stories my mom used to tell me when I was 5 years old at bedtime, right? Stories are sticky in people's minds. So if you have a great story and you hit them in the right place, they will remember you. And you eventually will hit a tipping point in your market to where everyone knows who you are and you get recognized at the local Vietnamese restaurant that you go to or whatever it is, right? There's just people like, oh yeah, I saw your story or I see your videos in the news feed, you're the doc that does blah, 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 blah. That's a really nice thing when you can get known for what you want to be known for. And people they just like and respect you and they just think it's cool and they come in because of it.
Yeah, absolutely. I can definitely resonate with that. I remember being at a spinal screening at a big, I think it was a running event, a 10K, and some lady who used to work for, don't know whether she still does work for British Airways. She comes up to me and she's wearing her uniform. I think they were doing something to contribute to the event. And she says, "You're Dr. Danny, aren't you? I've been meaning to come and see you for ages." And we booked her in there and then, and she was a client for a long, long time. So it's definitely important, well, crucial to be omnipresent. I would say. I would. Would you agree with that?
100%, yeah. And if you were found everywhere and anywhere, and now Facebook is one channel, you got Instagram, you have Google, you have X, Pinterest, LinkedIn. I mean, there's a lot of different channels, and there's TikTok, and you have to understand that there are certain people and demographics that are no longer on Facebook. They've migrated to Instagram, they've migrated to TikTok or LinkedIn. So if you are found everywhere, if you are omnipresent, you kind of look like the only logical choice, and people do trust you very frequently. Like even one long time ago when I started putting video content out there that I didn't really it wasn't the best video content at all. It was terrible. It was grainy. But I just spoke and I got myself out there. I got out of my comfort zone. There are people that come up to me to this day and say, "Hey, man, I was following you back in the MySpace days or this and that, and you inspired me to start creating videos or to do this and that." And it's wild, some of the stories that I've seen. But if I would have never put myself and pushed out of my comfort zone, then, I mean, definitely I wouldn't have had a successful business like I have, but I wouldn't have been able to make the impact in other doctors and entrepreneurs' lives as well. So it's a pretty cool feeling.
Nice. Awesome. So in your consulting business, you work with loads of chiropractors. What's
Mhm.
one tip or strategy that you could share with the audience that you find is working really, really well for your clients in the chiropractic niche?
Yeah, well, I mean, this is as old as time, right? Demonstrations, showing people what you do, how you do it, and then ultimately a patient seeing a result and a change immediately. I mean, with what we do in so many instances, doctors are still in some places afraid to film what they do. And here's the cool thing. A lot of patients, they're curious about chiropractic. They've seen videos online. They want to even film it themselves. So let them just explain what you're doing. If you have context around what you're doing, yeah, people are going to hate. It doesn't matter, because those are such a small audience. But the people that love that type of content and the people that are just curious and those that will come in, it far outweighs. I've had so many doctors over the years, whether it's been on Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, they'll publish a video, like a case study video that, you can visibly see the patient is debilitated beforehand. And then the doctor starts working with them, explains exactly what he or she is doing. And then afterward, the patient gets up and you can see there's a massive change and improvement. Sometimes the patient cries. You can't fake that emotion. Okay. You can't fake it. And people know. And it doesn't matter who hates on the video. There's going to be a lot of individuals that be like, "Oh my gosh, this is incredible." One example that you've probably seen, and most chiropractors I think have seen. Uh, this is a video that was made a long time ago. It was a gentleman. His name was Dr. Ian Rossborough out of Australia. Did a great. I mean, he's done many great videos, but this kid comes into his office hunched over, and you can visibly see he's hunched over. He's had that problem for weeks. They flew in to see him, and over a series of I don't know how many visits, like 3 or 4, whatever it was, you can see this progression. His father can't hold back the tears. The kid straightens up. I mean, legit, just a really good video that. I mean, that thing was filling Gonstead practices around the world for a very long time. Just one video. So one video can take off organically and you can put dollars behind it. And if it's the right type of case study video. So featuring how you help people before and after is like getting all that progression is that's a marketing tip as old as time itself, right? But now with social media, we can put those together in an easily digestible format under 3 minutes in a video, then put it on Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, and then also put dollars behind it. So this is where if you're smart, you'll advertise that video to the right audience so they know you for getting a certain result. That way you can help more people and obviously build your practice.
Nice. Love that. So I've heard you mention it a lot, and I've experienced it as well when we were running our own practice. When you post stuff organically on Facebook, virtually either a very small percentage of people will see or nobody will see. Is that still the case across all the social platforms, or can organic content be seen by, let's say for argument's sake, it had 1,000 followers. I don't know. I would guess maybe at most 50 people would see them if you shared organically. Is that still the case?
So not on all platforms. Now, what I will say is this, organic traffic is not predictable. This is why if you're smart, you will have paid ads on top of organic because paid ads are predictable. If you know your metrics and you know you can spend 50 euros, 50 pounds and get 1,000 back, like we can predict certain things. So there has to be the paid ads element. Now, there are different platforms and channels that will give you different types of organic reach. You will not go viral on Facebook. That's just how their algorithm is. You might get, I mean, and Facebook probably limits you the most of any platform, I would say, quite honestly. So don't expect to go viral there. And if you have 1,000 fans on your fan page, you're periodically, once a week, you'll have to spend money to boost content to your fans because on average, maybe 10 to 20% or less will see any given Facebook post. That's pretty typical. Sometimes it's a lot less, and you can go to your Insights tab and tr track your metrics. But you should try to notice a pattern to see which pieces of content are getting the most visibility. Are they photos? Facebook does favor photos with stories, so you will get more visibility with photos, like photos shot from an iPhone, and then stories always. So that'd be one tip there. Now, TikTok, if you really want to make a case to go viral, like, and I just had a video for 3 weeks ago hit 500,000 views. I've had videos hit millions of views over there. I published a video last week. It had 198,000 views. We just hosted our social media revenue summit in Las Vegas. I got adjusted there by a friend of mine, and that video already has 7,000 views in a couple days. So TikTok, the way that algorithm is structured is they will take your content and push it out to an entirely new audience, even if you have zero followers. They'll just push it out to an entirely new audience. And if it gets a lot of likes, comments, and shares and rewatches, engagement, then they push it out to more people and more people and more people. So, man, I've had so many chiropractors go viral over the years on just TikTok alone. When it launched, I was just right there, because I see trends before they happen. So that would be an opportunity. Yes, you can gain massive amounts of organic visibility there. And all it takes is one or two videos. If you're hitting the millions in some of those, you're going to get calls very easily from that platform. And that can easily like parlay and turn into an avalanche to get you more people. And so you just have to understand how each platform is slightly different. So there are opportunities to still go viral organically, but you need to fuse that with paid ads.
Yeah, that makes sense. Awesome. So if there was one question that you'd wish I had asked but have not yet asked it, Matt, what would that be?
Hmm, that's a very good question. I think you've stumped me. I mean, they're all great questions. My biggest thing is the mentorship aspect. Very few people seem to know and ask questions about that. Like, oh, how did you do this? Well, I modeled other people that were extremely successful, or I figured this out. I think that maybe one question would be because on the surface it can seem like it's a different process than what actually happens behind the scenes, right? Everyone shows their highlight reels on Facebook, the successes, the wins, things of that nature. But and for me, I actually, I like to share the whole journey, usually, like the wins, the losses, or whatnot. But I think that a lot of times people can assume that it's just a very quick thing that happens, like, oh yeah, instant gratification. Hey, you person, I want these results on Facebook, or I want to build a brand in like 48 hours to have this, become a local celebrity. That doesn't happen overnight. And like the number one thing I think is discipline and patience, really, when it comes to building a brand, building a social media presence, because a lot of doctors they flake off. They'll start to get some momentum, and then for whatever reason, oh, this doesn't work like I thought it was, or they don't have the right strategy, and so they just taper it, and they just in this consistent pattern of stopping and starting. I mean, again, since 2005, 2006, I've known doctors, a couple I can think of in particular off the top of my head, they'll email me every couple of years, or they'll message me every couple of years and talk about this and that, and like, oh, what's changing now? And they've done very little. And I'm thinking all this stopping and starting and wondering this, wondering that. You could have had mentorship earlier on. You could have been had the accountability and had the consistent ad spend, the content, and you would have been a celebrity in your market by now, very easily. But you didn't put the time in. You're stopping and starting and doing haphazardly. So you can't underestimate patience and discipline. And like I said before, mentorship. I take my own advice. I'm involved in four different masterminds where sometimes I'm pretty good at getting stuff done. I just discipline. I have a task list. I'm very simple. I'm very old school, and I write stuff down. But I get lazy sometimes. And if I'm not pushed by people that I feel like that I respect, like I can't let that person down because number one, they're somebody I like and respect, and my reputation's on the line. That matters to me. That I say that if I say I'm going to do something, I do it. And number two, I've got a decent amount of skin in the game. And talking about earlier on, when you have a lot of skin in the game, let's say you bought a piece of real estate, for example, or you spend $15,000-$20,000 on mentorship or whatever, you've got skin in the game, so you're inclined to make that investment work because you've put out. It's just this weird thing that happens if you don't invest a lot in yourself and your success. You tend not to get the results that you want because you're not pushed hard, or at least to your capability, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? And so I've just found that's been a hack in my own life that I think more business owners, doctors, and entrepreneurs really need to focus on. Have the patience, have the accountability, and invest in your success.
Love that, mate. It reminds me of an old phrase or adage: when you pay attention.
Yeah, funny how that works.
Isn't it? Isn't it? Dr.
Yeah.
Matthew, it's been fantastic to have you on the Chiropractic Mindset Mastery podcast. I know how busy you are, so thank you so much for taking out the time to be with us on the show today.
Thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure. Appreciate it, Danny.
You're most welcome, mate. So for those people that want to reach out to you and connect with you and learn a bit more about you, where do they reach out to online, on socials, etc., mate?
Yeah, you can find me at Matthew Loop on pretty much every social platform. Just look for the verified links because there's imitators and whatnot out there. If you want to learn how we could potentially partner together and invest, if you go to matthewloop.com, you can check that out. We're also hosting a training this August 16th in Atlanta, our social media revenue summit. We're likely going to do it back at Porsche, the experience center there, maybe have a racing excursion the day before. And if you go to profit365.org/SMRS, you'll be able to learn about that event. There, we're going to probably launch the early bird tickets sometime in the next month or so, but that's usually where, I have a lot of doctors that are high 6, 7, 8 figures in the room, very, very high quality audience in room to that training and event. So those are things that I really like. I love bringing great people together and helping them with new strategies and insights that they can obviously impact their communities and grow their influence and their income. So
Awesome. Thanks again, mate. Really appreciate it.
you got it, Danny. Cheers.
You've been listening to Dr. Danny Scahill on the Chiropractic Mindset Mastery podcast. We look forward to seeing you on the next episode, guys. All the best. Take care.
You've been listening to Dr. Danny Scahill on the CMM podcast, where we help you grow your business without killing yourself. Subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, and more. Check out our free masterclass on chiropracticmindsetmastery.com.